Hi everybody, this is Laura and welcome to another Hero Arts video. Today we'll be learning how to make this elegant necklace using two of my favorite things, polymer clay and Hero Arts rubber stamps. We'll be using the Kanji poem background image to texture the beads. And the polymer clay we're using today is called Primo. It's my favorite brand, and we'll be using ecru, cadmium red, and black colors for our 3 beads. This is enough in 3 packages to actually make approximately 5 necklaces or so. Primo is an oven baked clay that hardens in your oven at approximately 275 degrees, and the first thing you'll need to do when you remove it from the package is to condition it. You can use a flat blade like the one shown here, found at your local craft store in the clay section, and you can slice it up into thin slices, lay it down on your work surface, and then roll it flat using an acrylic rod like this one. Another option for conditioning your clay is to use a pasta machine. Pasta machines are secured to your work surface, and then you run the clay through the top section and wheel it through. And there's an adjustable knob on the side so that you can adjust the width of your sheets as they go through. It's very helpful if you are interested in using clay in the future. Just know that once you use a pasta machine on clay, you should never use it for food again. It should be dedicated to clay. Once your sheets are conditioned, they'll have a nice sheen to them and they'll look like this. We'll need to texture the clay with the stamp, and to do that I'm going to stamp using some chalk inks so we have a nice contrast. I'm using the chalk cues with the dark brown chalk ink color and then the alabaster color. So the dark brown will go on the red and the ecru sheets, and then the alabaster light color will go on to my black sheet. I'll start with the alabaster and randomly ink my image. It's okay if I get some ink down into the grooves of the stamp, because that will actually look great with this technique that we're doing, and it will make your beads look more like ancient stone. You'll want to press fairly hard onto the clay to make sure that you leave a good impression. When you remove the stamp, you'll see that that ink has left a nice contrast, and there's also a texture there. You can take a small cookie cutter, whatever size that you want your bead to be. Look through the hole in the middle and decide where you like the image the best, and go ahead and trim that out. You can trim up to 4 circles out of one stamped image, and you'll need 2 circles for each bead. So for this necklace we need 2 circles of each color. You'll repeat with the dark brown ink on the red and ecru sheets. I trimmed out a few extra circles here. And you'll notice that these beads are dimensional. They're not flat. They have a curve to them. So in order to get that curve, you'll want to create a mold. And I'm using an old light bulb. This is probably one of those old light bulbs I would normally throw away when it burned out and replace it with the new fluorescent bulbs. But you can put this into some scrap clay and bake it in your oven, and then you'll have a mold that you can use over and over again for these beads. You can lay your stamped circles on top, and then from the center outwards smooth it out with your fingers so there's no air bubbles underneath your clay. Then go back through on the edges and just make sure that the edges meet the glass of the light bulb. You can get up to 4 circles on one standard light bulb, as you can see here. Once they're smoothed, you can go ahead and place those in the oven and bake them according to the manufacturer's instructions. Once you get them out of the oven, they'll pop right off of the light bulb. You'll want to wait until the piece cools, and then you can take some rubber thumbs like these and a sanding screen. This is a drywall sanding screen you could find at your local hardware store, and just grab onto the top of your half of your bead and just go back and forth on the screen, and that'll sand the edges so that they're smooth and flat, and that way they'll fit together perfectly, just like this. Now once they're sanded and smoothed, you'll want to adhere them together to create your hollow bead. I'm using just some plain super glue, and it's the kind of super glue that comes with a brush because I think it's much easier to apply that way. And I'm a little less likely to get my fingers stuck together. So be very careful when you're adding some glue to the edge that you don't accidentally get your fingers to, because I do speak from experience. You'll want to line up the kanji to make sure that they're lined up the way you want them, and then just press the edges together for about 15 seconds, maybe 20 seconds. And once you do that, your bead will be secure. You can go around, and if you have any rough edges, you can just rub those against your screen to sand off any of those rough edges. And once that's done, you have a complete bead. The next part is to add a gloss varnish, and I'm using Studio by Sculpey brand gloss varnish. It's found at your local craft store, and it's made for polymer clay. There are a lot of different options you can use. This is just the one I'm using for this project. Just take a soft brush and paint the varnish onto your polymer clay bead, making sure that you don't leave any bubbles behind so that they don't dry in your varnish. Now, if you prefer to have a little more contrast to your bead, you have the option of using some acrylic paint. And because the bead is textured, I'm showing an example here of some white acrylic paint that I'm going to brush onto a black bead surface. Because the bead is textured, the paint will settle into those grooves of the kanji, and then you can wipe away the excess paint on the surface of your bead just using a damp paper towel. And when you do that, it leaves a really striking contrast and also gives it more of that stone look. And you want to make sure that you don't wipe so hard that you wipe it out of the grooves. You just want to wipe lightly and in between those kanji letters. You can let that dry, and you can do this painting either before or after you create the finished bead that you've glued together, and then you can go back and add the varnish afterwards to seal your paint. Now once you've done that, you'll have 3 beads that look something like this. In order to get them strung onto the necklace, we'll have to create some holes. And I just drill my holes with a hand drill, a simple hand drill. You could do this with a Dremel or another tool like that, but the hand drill gives you a little bit more control. And I'm just eyeballing it and looking at either side where I want the top and the bottom to be. And I'm going in on the right side on the top, just using my hand drill very, very carefully not to scratch the clay, and going through to the hollow part on the inside. You can mark the sides with a Sharpie marker if you'd like, or you could measure it. I'm showing you there's the hole that I've created, and you'll just want to match that over and do the exact same thing on the other side, and then you can string it onto a necklace and you'll be done. Thanks for joining me.